Good morning, everybody, and welcome to Unique Peace. I am Janice. I'm the quiet healer and intuitive medium and Reiki Master Teacher here on Long Island. And today I'm joined by Mike Martin. He is a mindfulness coach and he goes through, does it very differently than some people are used to. And I'm looking forward to learning how his approach has helped him and how it will help others. So welcome me and welcome Michael Martin. How are you, Mike?
I'm doing great. How are you?
I'm good. I'm good. So you have Project Mindfully Outdoors and you help people appreciate the outdoors and do meditations in the outdoors. But let's go back and kind of walk us through how you got there. What was the process of starting that?
All right. So, in the little introduction there, you said something about very unique in my approach. And that was the approach that actually brought me to where I'm at because about 5 years ago, I went through a second divorce that left me homeless. I ended up attempting to take my life and, all the really hard parts that come with having a full on breakdown. And at that point, I was living in the woods between there and my truck. And the morning after that, botched a suicide attempt. I walked back to my truck like nothing happened. I turned on a podcast. It was a hunting based podcast. And they just happened to have a stoic author on there who threw out a bunch of Marcus Aurelius quotes at me that really tugged on my heartstrings as a father. In that situation, had I given up and just that was the end of it, that's what they would have remembered. But it made me think that if I had the ability within me to pull myself back up and meet all these adversities and find my true north and right the ship, then I would teach my kids so much more. That was the motivation and the inspiration. All the actual work for that came with not only discovering meditation and building a practice, but it also came by looking at the skill set and the things that I do in the outdoors differently. So, where I was at a point in my life where I had zero confidence in myself and zero self worth, to go out and build a shelter and survive through the night, do those different tasks, it was a physical representation of all these things that I'm telling myself that are negative and wrong about me. And it really helped me to build and foster who I am today because of that. And getting into where I'm at now, as far as professionally with coaching and hiking and taking people outside, I do the same. I brought that same heartfelt journey that I took and I applied that to begin to help other people.
So as let's go back and kind of like and you were in that really dark spot and you lifted yourself up from like you were listening to a hunting podcast, not something that would automatically flip a switch and say become very aware of, hey, I can see this differently. It was the quotes that helped, but it was the vehicle that was unique and it helped
Exactly.
you, and it helps you with your unique vehicle. And most people are like familiar with, oh, nature is peaceful, we can go out into nature, we can do all these things. But what I like what you said is you appreciate your skill set.
Well, without that skill set, and it's something that, in my journey, I took for granted. The fact that, like, my grandfather taught me how to pitch a tent, taught me how to hunt, taught me how to fish, build a fire, all that good stuff. That's cool. It got me through the day. And it was fun. It was exciting. But then when I hit that point and I started to really reassess and look for different anchors that could help me in order to pull myself up, it was looking at those things and saying, if I didn't know how to do that, or if I didn't do that, then the outcome may not be very good. So as I would bring it into the concrete world, at that point in my life, I was still holding a day job and, doing whatever it took to get by. And it started to build a vocabulary that I was able to change the self talk within. So as opposed to, the situation is so horrible, there's no foreseeable change or positive outcome coming. Well, when I'm sitting there building a fire and I'm focusing all that energy on crafting something from scratch, all the way to something that's going to keep me warm all night and help me cook food and boil water, I realized, with my own hands and my own actions, I did that, and I can do the same thing in the concrete world. I can start crafting and approaching these different obstacles and impediments that are in my way in my own head and turn them into different branches of a tree that are going to help me to grow and go forward.
I love that nature metaphor. That so as you're building on your skill sets and your mindset is switching and you're really beginning to understand and be mindful of the actions and you're taking and how they affect you. How do they affect your personal definition of peace?
They actually gave me the vocabulary to build one because I never had one before all that. It was just kind of like day to day survival mode forever. And it was the meditation part that really taught me what peace and all those different aspects of that are, which is another really funny story along the journey. Because if you had asked me 5 years ago what my definition of meditation was, it was all the stereotypical, I don't understand anything, so those are my responses. And I would talk my way out of a paper bag in order to prevent myself from having to do it. Now, I was doing talk therapy, and the idea of meditation came up as far as, to work on my sleeping pattern. And of course, I made all the excuses, put up the fight, and
Yep.
then I grabbed my crossbow and I started taking target practice afterward. And I thought about it, it all clicked. I was like, in order to really do this and be here, I'm in the moment, I'm focused on my breathing, slowing my thoughts down. What happens if I put the crossbow down and I just sit there on the grass? And that's what I did for about 20 minutes. And that ended up becoming the catalyst to building that idea and definition of what inner peace really feels like and experiencing it.
Beautiful. So that you being in the elements and really focused on what you need to do in like this is going to affect this, which is like it goes on the mindfulness journey. So how do you find peace for yourself? You're out in the woods. How do you find that peace? What would you say is the pinnacle there for you?
I would say there's two different schools of thought to look at, because for me, you can walk into the wilderness and just instantly look at your surroundings and feel that peace, that relaxation. But, for none of us, that's something that we're able to do 24 hours a day, 365 days a year. So we've also got to deal with the concrete world. And what bridged the gap was spending the time in the wilderness, just enjoying the connection, the scenery, looking around, and whatever the adventure may be. And getting back to the mindful aspect of it, holding that in your heart so that when you come into the concrete world and there's all the stresses and the burdens of work, your daily life and everything like that, you're able to kind of tap back into that feeling that you had when you were out in the wilderness. There was a quote actually out of Meditations by Marcus Aurelius that inspired me to take that kind of a journey, where he talked about how everybody craves to go on a vacation. They crave to
Mhm.
find you know, that time to let their hair down. But they lose sight of the fact that in the day to day world where everything's constantly triggering them and throwing everything at them, they still had that moment to reach inside, find that stillness, and touch that same level of emotional and inner peace that you would physically feel on that vacation.
And that's not easy to do.
It's definitely not, and that's why so much of my work revolves around time spent in the outdoors and in the wilderness, is because in reality, it is by far the safest place that you can be mentally. There's no one to point a finger at you, to judge you. There's none of that going on because there's not room for it within the natural circle of, earth and the flow of life in the wilderness.
Now, I like to camp. I like to fish. Not an avid hunter. I'm not good with hunting. I'll be honest. I'm nothing against it. I'm just not good personally at it. But when you're out there in the elements and you're focused on the day to day and having to be very hyper aware of your surroundings, because while nature is beautiful, we can sit in the awe of it. We have to remember that nature is also the habitat for our predator. People, we're a predator, but we are also prey with bears, cougars, lions and tigers and all of that. So when you're out there and you're in that space and having to be mindful of everything going on, how does that help you in a peaceful setting? How do you find peace with knowing all that's around you?
It definitely makes you look at yourself differently. It makes you realize that you're not guaranteed that spot at the top of the food chain, because if you end up in a spot, you could be on the menu for somebody else. And one of the things that I really like to apply it to within my relationship of my journey, but also something I relate to, is the thought of anxiety. Because
Mm-hmm.
9 times out of 10, that's what stops people from going out on these different adventures. Is I have a fear of bears. I have a fear of something, sneaking up on me, and so on and so forth. Well, a couple years ago, I was out at the height of the rut, which is the breeding season for deer.
Mm-hmm.
And it just so happened to be one of the most miserable days in the world to be outside. It was, the snow was pouring down. It was probably, -5 with the windshield. And I'm standing there in this tree all day, hadn't seen anything. This beautiful young buck come through. That I've got this rule that I hold myself to, is I like to have a connection with the animals that I do harvest. And I had never seen him before, so obviously I was giving him a pass. And as I'm standing there watching him just kind of mess around in the area, giving me plenty of opportunities, I'm thinking to myself, I call myself a hunter. Why am I not shooting? It's miserable out here. What am I doing? And I had been burdened by anxiety, like to almost crippling point in the days before that. And it made me think about that relationship with anxiety. For Longhorn, as I named him, his mission is to obviously further his species. Now, at the height of the rut, he's not thinking clearly, because he's all about getting that goal achieved. But in the back of his mind, he still has that thought that, if I do encounter trouble, the skills are within me to be able to run away, or whatever the case may be, so I can let myself get out there a little bit. And when I think about my anxiety, even though it's not in reality life and death as the game that he's in, it still feels that way, right?
Yeah.
And when you feel that strongly about the fear and the things that come with anxiety, to look at Longhorn and say, well, he can still do it, I guess it means that even though I'm telling myself this story, if I step outside of it, I can still achieve whatever that little hurdle of anxiety is holding in front of me.
Yeah. And so many of us have anxiety. There's that, overthinking and over the overthinking cycle that can become very vicious, that leads to anxiety. The fear of
Right.
the unknown the worry of tomorrow and the future. And one of like, I am a Reiki master, so it's like, will not anger because anger puts me in the past. I will not worry because worry puts me in the future. So I will be grateful for the present, which puts you in the present. But to be honest, sometimes it's very hard to be in the present. So taking all of that information and you at that moment you're in the stand and you're very present with everything that's going on in your, you're watching him, you're feeling you're watching all of that go on. So how does knowing all of that and you venturing into becoming peaceful in the wilderness help you when you're helping others? How do you help others get with that?
A lot of observation, whether we're walking or we're just taking a break, being able to just look around and see what's going on, feel, the experience, whether it's the wind blow or, you're watching squirrels run around chasing, acorns and so on and so forth. It's being able to just watch and observe is one of the most important principles of mindfulness that I'll teach somebody. Because when you bring that back into the way it translates back into the concrete world, is somebody throws a pile of paper on your desk or, so on, whatever the case may be at your job, and they tell you, figure this out, get this accomplished. You've still got to take the time to research and observe and learn about the material that's on your desk before you can formulate a plan. And that's what I feel bringing yourself into the moment really gives you the power and the ability to do, is look objectively at what's going on. You know, like I mentioned with the idea of just watching squirrels run around on the forest floor. They they don't have a story that they're telling themselves, Little Joe over there didn't steal my nuts, so I got to go chase him and this and that. I'm doing this because this is the cycle and this is what I know. I've studied and I've learned and I've observed, and now I'm applying those things with a lot more confidence.
So when you're helping people and you take them out, correct? You take them out into the outdoors. It's a physical experience for the most part.
Oh, most definitely. And one of the things I do is when I take people out, is we do a lot of hiking, and we hit a lot of, as we work our way up, we'll get to some more of the extreme or harder test trails out there. And the thing that I like to really point out in there, because we all have moments where it's like, man, this is just too much. I'm done. I'm going to sit down right here and just quit. Well, when you're on that trail, if you sit there and quit, that's not an option. You've either got to go forward or you got to go back. 9 times out of 10, you hit a point where going back is harder than it is to go forward. And one great example is there's a park in Indiana called Turkey Run. They talk about and they highlight the fact that they have over 500 stairs within one little section. Now, getting to those stairs involves about, I think it was about 2.5 to 3 miles of walking ridge lines and climbing up streams and, navigating your way up boulders and all kinds of stuff. Now, when you get to those stairs, yeah, they're gonna suck. They're hard, but going back the other way is going to be just as bad. When you get to the end, you get the reward. You get the satisfaction of saying, I did it, plus you get your little challenge sticker and so on and so forth. So, pacing yourself, observing this is what's in front of me, this is what I'm going to do, how I'm going to do it, and still having that willingness and that flexibility to pivot. Like I get 100 steps up, I'm dehydrated. So, let me pull out the water and
Right.
rehydrate and breathe and do my thing, and then I'm back up at it. It To me, it's about the idea of getting the observation, forming the plan, but having that flexibility to pivot and still working your way toward that goal.
Never giving up, just reevaluating.
Yes.
So and it's very funny because there comes like, I don't know if you've ever been to Pikes Peak. I've done it more than once, and I've never done the climb. I've never done the climb. I've done a lot of hiking in Colorado, but I've never climbed Pikes Peak. But I've driven it more than once. And that whole, you can't go back. Once you start going up in the car, there's only one way up and one way down.
Exactly.
So it's kind of like just, it's kind of by in the eye of the storm. It's like, just get through it. It's usually the fastest way to get through any situation is to get through it. And it's not fun all the time.
It's not always supposed to be fun, though. It's about learning to embrace the suck factor. You know, you hike for 8, 9, 10 hours on a nice day. You set up camp, and then all of a sudden it starts storming. It starts raining. It's not going to be fun, but you're not going to hike the 8 or 9 hours back to the car, because by the time you get there, the rain's going to be over with, and you've done lost your progress. So in those moments when that suck factor really shows itself, understanding that there's two sides to life, I feel, to the coin. There's the good side, there's the bad side. And if you hold center in the middle, you're at least putting yourself in a position to be able to, weather out the storm and then continue on with the adventure. And that's one of the most important principles, I think, that you learn through the outdoors, is that you can endure whatever life throws at you. You might lose a little bit of your momentum, but you can easily gain that back by pivoting and observing.
Now, has there ever been a time where you've had a client who's wanted to turn around and but decided to push forward?
Oh, turkey run. You get to that gigantic staircase, and at this point, I think it was probably his second or third hike with me, and I had given him the whole disclosure about what this was going to entail, and he really wanted to do it. Well, we got to that gigantic staircase, and as he looked up, he was like, I'm done. So, I gave him a couple of minutes to kind of sit with it for himself, and then stepped in, gave him a bottle of water, and I was like, we just came through all of those ravines, we came through those streams, we walked up boulders, and yeah, that staircase is going to be hard. You see those people up there struggling, but I'm telling you, just take your time and pace yourself. Life's not always about the race. It's not about the destination. It's about the journey to get there.
Absolutely. We have a mountain here in New York, Mohonk Mountain, and my boyfriend took me and my son up, and they have the scramble. You can take the easy walking trail up, but we took the scramble because there's certain points where he wanted us to, because he's done it a couple of times, wanted to see how, not so much how we would react, but like, isn't this amazing? Because the road less traveled usually has the best view.
Yes.
But with like Turkey Hill, it's like, yeah, you gotta climb the stairs and get to the top to appreciate how far you've come, and B, the view. You can look back and say, I did this.
That's I think that's actually a really well said as far as the way this conversation started. I mean, at that really black and dark point in life, to go from there to now, doing what I do and having my feet firmly planted on the ground for myself, is to look back and say, man, I have come a long way. And that's something that none of us give ourselves enough credit for. So getting out on a trail, regardless of the challenge or the things that you're going to see there, when you get 5 miles down the road, down the line, and you look back, you say, man, I just traversed all of that ground. There's a reason to smile and a reason to have self-esteem, and, a reason to celebrate that.
So you found the joy in the great outdoors, and it really has helped you find peace and center, and you are helping others find peace and center. Do you have like a story you can share of even if it's back to our gentleman friend here in Turkey Hill, where they were in a very difficult spot and they came just trying to, sometimes where you're just like, I need something because whatever I'm doing isn't working.
Let's see. I'm gonna go way back to the beginning of the journey with the project, because one thing that I had put out when I first started was, if you want somebody to hunt with you or teach you, let me know, and all those sort of things. And this guy reached out to me around the beginning. I think it was around Labor Day, a couple days before. He had just gotten his hunter safety certificate. He wanted to go out and do some goose hunting. So he reached out asking me where to go, and I was like, I don't have anything going on that day. Let me do you one better and take you out. And he agreed. We connected, and I took him to one of my favorite fields. And through the morning, as it started to kind of die down a little bit, he started to open up. He started to mention that he was struggling with alcoholism, and he was getting close to the end of the rope and everything. And it was kind of his last ditch effort to try to preserve, or whatever way you want to paraphrase it. But just the fact that I found myself in that situation, to be able to help support him and bring him along. And this was about 4.5 years ago, and he's going to be celebrating his 3 years sober pretty soon,
That's
which is an
beautiful.
amazing thing.
Yeah, that's amazing, and that is beautiful. And just going back to getting to the top of the mountain to enjoy the view. Michael, my other half, said it's awe-filling to connect with nature on that level. And
It definitely
absolutely,
is.
absolutely. And you help bring someone to a point of where it was safe to be sober. There's an
Yeah,
alternative to drinking. There's an alternative out there that you can't be afraid of. I think so many of us, because we're so disconnected, the world is really disconnected from nature, that it can be intimidating. It can be
it can.
very intimidating. Especially if you don't feel like you know what you're doing. I mean, I went through the hunter safety program. I went through and got my card and everything. Obviously, it's lapsed, but you have to be, brave enough to face the elements, face the unknown, and not be afraid to face that. Knowing that if you don't keep moving forward, if you get stagnant, you can get into trouble.
Definitely. And I think it's speaks really well to why I've shifted to more of the hiking as opposed to working with people through hunting. Because a lot of people, they sit and look out the window of their house or their office and go, man, I would love to experience some time out there, but I'm scared, I'm intimidated, I don't even know where to start. So being able to help them go from sitting in a window to actually just as simple as walking around their park, their local neighborhood
Yeah,
park,
you got to start
is one
somewhere.
of exactly is one of the best ways. And just like the story that I shared with you before, is it's a unique medium to be able to get out into the wilderness, and things come out, and you start to explore things that in the concrete world we normally wouldn't. We would just kind of turn our head and go through the day and whatever. But these things come out, and I believe it's a great metaphor. I do a lot of my work based on metaphors. If you can physically see what you're doing, then your brain has the context to be able to bring that to the forefront of your mind and help you appreciate and work through whatever the challenges may be that you're going through within the moment. So to go from I'm fearful and I'm scared because I don't know where to start, to finding a centering point and a beginning point, walking around the park, goes the same thing for a moment in life when you're overwhelmed and you don't know which direction to walk, where to start. or how
Yep.
to calm the storm. Well, if I went from looking through the window to actually walking around a park, I've got a reference point and I can kind of slow things down a little bit, sit down, be still with it, observe, honor, listen to all those different things, and then start to calculate a plan. And it brings that feeling of being overwhelmed into a controllable level where you can start taking back control.
Absolutely. And another thought that just came in, when you're in nature, you have to kind of be very aware and listen. You have to quiet the mind and listen. Listen to the birds, listen to the trees, listen to where the wind is coming from. If you get lost, do I hear water? You have to kind of like find that moment and like, okay, I have to stop and be very aware. And I think that helps with the meditation process, because in meditation, you're like going within and stopping, and you hear everything. You do feel everything. You do sense everything. So going out into nature can be very meditative because it helps you to stop and listen. Would you agree with that?
I absolutely would. And I think that the moment that most of the people that I've worked with hit that sensation and they understand that and start to feel an experience is like one of those life changing sort of experiences. Because a
Yeah.
lot of people don't think about the fact that everything around us is actually alive. That everything around us is telling a story, sharing its wisdom. And when we get out there and we're on the trail or, whatever we're doing, if we're just sitting at, say, maybe a fishing pier in our car, you feel the wind, you still see the waves, you still see all these different things. And you can realize and you can start to connect with and understand that we are all one. We are all still a part of this gigantic circle. And you can visualize, different ways that it relates to you. You can also bring that internally to a point where you see yourself as that circle and that energy that flows between it. And it helps you to sort out where there may be some imbalances, where there may
Yeah.
be room for improvement, things that you're struggling with. And, it gets back to the observing idea, building that plan on how to go forward with it.
And so you said you wanted to be, there as an example for your kids. Have you taken your kids on these kinds of adventures recently? And how's that helped them perceive the world?
It is definitely brought my son a lot of joy, excitement, and pride within himself. I remember, what was it, 5 or 6 months ago, I took him down to Cuyahoga, the Cuyahoga Valley, and let him climb around some ledges. And he ended up making a 2.5, 3 mile hike up some ledges. When he got to the top, I carried him a little bit, but he was so happy and excited and proud of himself that he achieved that. And, whether it's my children or myself or someone else, just to take them up to experience something like that for the first time is so rewarding. It's an amazing celebration and feeling.
And that kind of leads me to the next question is, what's in your toolbox? And what I mean by that is you have somebody who's new. They're out in, in that office building looking outside going, I need to change something. I need to go for a walk. I need to do something different. So what's in your toolbox to just kind of like help them? You got like 10 minutes, you're talking to them. How would you advise them to start?
Let's see, as simple as getting outside and just walking around your neighborhood, walking around a park, sitting down, finding some stillness, just, just to be. You don't have to close your eyes, you don't have to meditate. Just, look up at the sky. One thing that I love is the metaphor of a cloud when it comes to like, the thought process. And you look up you see all the different clouds, and you allow each one of them to represent an individual thought that might be running through your head, and realize that they're moving because of, well, the jet stream, because of the hand of Mother Nature. And as you see each one of your thoughts individually as the cloud, you can start to realize that those thoughts are going to move based on your momentum, based on your hand. So you can bring one to the foreground, sit with it, learn, from the experience, figure out what it requires of you, and so on and so forth. And then you can blow it away and then let the next one come in. And it's a great way to slow down that hamster wheel of the mind. I feel like whether you're actually going out into the wilderness, going to a park, navigating through the concrete world, whatever it is, that rush of the hamster wheel within our minds is one of our biggest problems. So
Yeah,
being able to just look up at the clouds and take that visualization is so powerful.
absolutely. And so if someone's looking to get started, and I know you're in Michigan, so we'll start there. If someone's looking to get started and they want to go outside, and people can be very cautious and they can be scared, but what would be the best way to reach out to you? There's your website. So would they start there?
Yeah, so if you want to take a journey and experience wilderness meditation, you can swing over to projectmindfully-outdoors.co, and you can sign up for a free call. We'll connect and we'll see how we can craft a plan that's going to help you jump from living in survival mode all the way up to living an inner peace filled journey based on mindfulness and honor yourself.
And are there any like final thoughts to help us through our day that you can share with us that that would bring us into nature?
I would go with the idea that it's a quote from Daniel Boone. We are never truly lost. We may get turned around in the woods for 3, 4, 7 days, but we are never truly lost. We are able to navigate our way through any experience, and whether it's in the wilderness or it's in our own personal lives. The tools to do so are within us. We come to points where we feel we can't make it or we can't go forward because we forgot something back at the house, or we never bought something, or we never learned a skill. Well, the truth is, our our journey, our individual journeys, they lead us different ways. They bring us to those points where we feel lost or hopeless. But in order to find a flashlight or a compass to find your way back to that main trail, it's within you. If you simply take the time to sit down with yourself and just listen to how you feel within your heart. Because no matter where you're at in life, that true north never actually leaves your heart. It may become silent, but if you put the time and the practice into it, it will definitely lead you back to where you're supposed to be.
I love that. I love that. And I would like to thank you, Mike, for being on Unique Peace with us this morning and for sharing some beautiful insights about being in nature and how to navigate nature. Because sometimes that's not easy, especially people who only know the concrete jungle and I was looking to do something new and exciting. And I look forward to speaking again soon. And we're going to put Mike
Absolutely.
in the back for a minute. Be right back. I want to thank everybody for joining us today on Unique Peace. I hope that you have learned how important nature is to our health and our well-being, and how it can help us find peace and bring us peace. And next Sunday, I will have another wonderful guest who will talk peace with us, and have a wonderful day in the meantime.